Welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about World War I, fighting in World War I. And when we look at the fighting in World War I, one of the key things about it is something called trench warfare. So when we're talking about trench warfare, there's three types of trenches. You have the front line, the support, and the reserve. Now, why were they fighting in trench warfare? Well, what happened is as Germany was advancing across France, eventually the Allies are going to stop and they're going to dig in. Old tactic, you dig in, great defense, because now your enemy has got to come at you while you have defensive positions. Well, both sides dug in, and they basically created trenches from one end to the other of France. And they created this stalemate, which was trench warfare. So this is just kind of a picture showing you, and we'll talk about this in just a second, but you have your front line, you have your support, you have a communication trench that puts them in, you have your headquarters back here, and you have your reserve trench. Now, what you'll see in this picture right here is something that they call no man's land. No man's land is the area between the two enemies' trenches, and it's called no man's land because no one wanted to be there. You're basically out in this open area, kind of like a sitting duck. The trees have all been blown away. There's muck. They put mines out there, barbed wire. It's not where you want to get into, is in this area. And so, like I was kind of talking about, this is a good picture which shows from the air the different trenches, and all of these like squiggly lines that you see look kind of like worms. Those are trenches, and these are the German trenches, and these are going to be the British trenches. And this area in between that's just kind of all black is this no man's land. Now the Germans were able to get usually more favorable ground. It was a little bit drier, a little bit higher, but it didn't mean that they were able to advance. Pretty much for years they were just kind of all stuck. They really didn't move a whole lot. And the reason for that is that trench warfare is great when you're talking about defense, but it's horrible offense. So here's some pictures to just kind of show you. You're basically in the mud and the muck, especially if you're in a lower lying area. Anytime it rains, it just all comes down. You can see this no man's land up here, how it's just completely barren. This man is trying to get his feet dry. Here's some more men. And by the way, you slept here, you ate here, you did everything in these trenches. So this is a picture that I always like to show because these men are super proud of these rats that they've caught. The rats were part of your daily life. They were also in the trenches, trying to find food, probably nibble on your toes a little bit, not somewhere you wanted to be. And those are some big rats. So, as this trench warfare continues to go and there's this huge stalemate, it kind of comes to this idea of whether or not the U.S. should enter the war. And there were two main groups in the U.S. who were against the war. And these are going to be the socialists and the pacifists. And they are both, for their own reasons, not going to think that the U.S. should enter the war, be it because they saw it as an imperialist contest or that it went against American ideals. But they're going to try and keep the United States from entering the war. And honestly, while all of this is kind of happening in the beginning, you know, most of the people in the U.S. do not want to join the war effort. They want to keep the U.S. home, and you will have some men that will actually go over to France and Britain and train. A lot of pilots are going to do that, and they will fight for France and Germany while they're waiting for the U.S. to enter the war. But the U.S. on a whole is going to wait. So what's going to lead the U.S. into going? Well, there's a couple of main things that happen. The first is that Britain decides to blockade the German forts.